If you're watching this, then you've probably tried building apps using AI coding tools like Lovable and Bolt, but you're struggling with what to do next. You might have questions like, how can you deploy it? And how can I get real paying customers actually using the thing that I've built? And so today I want to take you through the full Vibe Coders tech stack so you can see exactly how to go from your working prototype into a full-blown working app that has customers, makes money, and can actually grow into a legitimate business. If you don't know me, my name is Chris, and for the last 15 years I've been designing apps and advising startups on product and design, and I believe the next wave of incredible businesses is going to be built using these AI tools. With that said, let's get into the tech stack and get your app ready to grow.
Build great products. Build great products.
So today I'm going to show you how to go from your prototype or your app that you've built in Lovable or Bolt or any other AI app building tool to an actual working app that is deployed, that people can actually access, that people can pay for, that you can accept payments for, so that you can start getting customers for your app that you're building using AI. I've got a whole list of tools on the left here, and you don't need all of these. These are all going to fit into different categories here to go from idea to working app. And by that, I mean something that you can actually get paying customers for. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to take you through step by step exactly which tools fit in where on this map, basically, to get your app working and live and accepting paying customers, so that you can know exactly the next steps that you need to take to get your app in the hands of real people. We're going to start off with the tools that you might already have been using here. So this will be like Lovable or Bolt. You may have got started with some of these tools to actually build your first app. There's loads of other ones out there, so maybe you used Base 44 as well, or Emergent, but these are kind of the two main ones that I think people are using at the moment. And so to start off with, you're probably using these to build your app. So we're going to put these on the build your app category here. So very simply, if you want to get the app that you've built in Lovable or Bolt to be deployed on an actual website, the best way that I would recommend doing that is to go through these next two steps here. So having a place to store your code. So you can deploy directly from Bolt or from Lovable, but what I would recommend is if you want this to actually be an app that can get customers and get people paying for it and actually manage that as potentially a business that could grow in the future, you want to have a place to store your code so that you can edit it using a bunch of different tools if you need to, and then you want to have a place that you can deploy your app. So to store your code, you want to connect your projects to GitHub. GitHub essentially is an industry standard for storing code. Stored code is called a repository. It's almost like just a folder with all of your code in. And if you connect GitHub to Lovable or Bolt, it will sync all of the changes from those platforms into GitHub. So your code in GitHub will be automatically updated by Lovable or Bolt, and that will automatically push that live to your app when it is deployed. Now you've got your code in GitHub. How do you actually deploy that somewhere? Well, you can use a tool like Netlify or Vercel to deploy your app. So these two tools are your tools to deploy your app. You can use either one of these. And Vercel and Netlify both connect to GitHub, and you can just choose the repository that you want to publish and then deploy it to a domain. You can also buy a domain on these places as well. So let's just put in some notes here as we go so that you know exactly what's happening. So basically buy domains, connect to GitHub, and deploy from GitHub. That's what you're doing here. Your stored code is your repository. That's the folder where all of your code is kept. So this is your very simple setup. If you just want to get your app live and on a website that people can access, but there is a few other things that plug into this. So what if you want to accept payments? What if you want to have a bit more control over the functionality in your app? Or what if you want to actually design your app better? And what if you have an app where you have information that needs to be stored somewhere? If you're storing information and allowing users to sign up and log in, you need to store that app's data somewhere. Store your app data. I'm going to put this as store your app data and enable login and sign up, which is called authentication. So where you want to do that, I would recommend using Supabase. Again, Supabase connects directly to Lovable or Bolt if you're using those to build your app. And so in Bolt or Lovable, you basically just connect Supabase. And what you want to do in Supabase is you basically just want to create an account, create a project, and then connect to your build tool, which could be Lovable, it could be Bolt, or it could be something else, which we're going to discuss in a second. Next, let's say we want to set up payments for our app. What tool do we use to do that? You could use something like Stripe, but Stripe can be a bit tricky when it comes to tax. And especially if you're accepting customers from anywhere in the world, handling tax can be a bit difficult. And so what we want to do in that instance is to use something called a merchant of record. And a merchant of record basically collects all of the tax for you, for the companies before they pay out. And that platform is called Polar. And Polar is a company that has just raised 10 million in a funding round, and so they're growing pretty fast. And Polar is a great option here because it is specifically designed for web apps and SaaS, and it gives you also options of charging based on AI usage, AI API usage as well, and it will give you visibility of all your different products and your payments and be able to track all of the data around those as well, and it handles tax in the platform. Now please make sure that you do read the documentation for Polar. I cannot give you explicit advice about your specific app that you're building or how to accept payments, but what you want to do here is create an account, create the pricing or products for your app, and then connect to your build tool, and that will be via API. And so you'll be able to find your API in Polar to connect that to whatever tool you're building your app with, whether that, and if it's Lovable or Bolt, you can literally chat with Lovable or Bolt and say, I want to integrate Polar. Can you give me step-by-step instructions to integrating Polar with Lovable or Bolt? Great. Okay, so now we have a place to store our app data in Supabase. We have a place to accept payments in Polar. These are all connected to Bolt or Lovable, which is where we're building our app. We can store that code somewhere, and then we're deploying it to a live environment with Vercel or Netlify. And what we can do then as well, what this setup enables you to do then as well, is if you are building in Bolt or Lovable, you can basically create a separate branch in GitHub. And so this is something that you can do here, create branches and then work on a separate branch in your build tool. And so what that will enable you to do is to create one version of your stored code in GitHub that is live on your website, and one version that you can work on and update as you go before you actually push it live. And so we want to create that separation between what is the production app, the live app that's on the website, and what we're building behind the scenes, because we might be building something that then breaks, and if that syncs with GitHub and then pushes it to something that's live, if someone's using the app and then they find something that breaks or a new feature that isn't working properly, that can be a really bad experience for your users. And so what comes next? Quick break in the episode to talk about my community for people who are building apps with AI and actually want to make a profit. It's called the AI App Builders Academy. So if you're building an app using Bolt or Lovable or Cursor or any other AI tool and you actually want to make a profit, then this is the community for you. Inside, you'll get access to a community of other builders, weekly Q&As and demo days, and my full Product to Profit course covering everything you need to know to validate your idea, build your app, and then grow it from your first customers and beyond. You'll also get access to all of my startup frameworks from my 15 years experience of designing apps and advising startups on product and design. So if you're building an app with AI and you actually want to make a profit from it, head over to school.com/AI apps and join the community. I'll see you there. So to go from idea to a working app, what I really like doing for your basic app, for your app functionality, is to use an AI automation tool instead of building that directly into your code base. If you build your app's functionality into your code base for your initial version of your app, what you might not have is a good visibility of exactly how that's working and how you can edit the steps in that functionality. If you connect something like an AI automation tool like Make and like NAN, what you can do then is you can build flows in those tools which create the functionality that you want to enable in your app. And so a really simple way of doing this is to basically send data. I'm going to go change the arrow here to both ways. Is you're basically sending data from your app to NAN or Make into a webhook, which would be on an automation that you set up here. So imagine you send, like, there's a form on your web app which has a website URL, and then when the user clicks a button, it sends the website URL to an automation in NAN. NAN then does something with that website URL. It sends it to a ChatGPT node, it sends it to a different chain of events that actually does something, and then it sends the response back to your app to then display on the front end of the app that you're building. So that's the way that I like to build basic initial functionality for my app. This is also a really great way of being able to build and test AI agents as well. So you can build AI agents to use in your app, and also build initial functionality to give you better visibility of what's actually happening in your app. The last thing that I want to talk about here, before we go on to different tools to actually build your app to give you more control, is the design your app section. Now, you can get really high fidelity, good quality design in Lovable or Bolt, but if you want to tweak things more specifically, and if you want more detailed control over the design of your app, there are some tools that are emerging that allow you to essentially design in code exactly how a designer would design in a design tool. I said design a lot. And these tools, the tools here that are doing this right now is Builder.io, Fusion, and Onlook. Onlook is still in alpha at this point, but it is in the latest Y Combinator batch of companies that essentially lets you design directly in the code. Builder.io Fusion is something that is available now if you go to the Builder.io website, and you're connecting this to your GitHub as well. So what these design tools do is they allow you to design directly in your code, so you don't need to go back and forth between where you're building. You can actually design directly in your code base that is stored in GitHub. All you have to do is go over to one of these platforms, connect GitHub, open your repository, and then design in code. And you'll be designing directly in the code for that repository. I think Aura can also do this as well by Meng To and the design code team, so that is also one that might be worth checking out. So now we have everything we need here to go from idea to a working app. So what are these other ones that we've got here on the left? Well, if you're starting to get serious about building your apps with AI, what I would do is I would move, once you've got your prototype done, I would start to move your building your app, your primary kind of workflow for building, I would start to move that onto an actual specific AI coding tool and start to use some of the best AI coding agent tools that are available today. And so in that situation, let's say we've built our prototype in Lovable and Bolt, we've connected up all of these things here, we've now got a way of deploying it, we've got payments, we've got our data somewhere. Let's start to actually build some more complex functionality in here, review the code to make sure it's all secure and it's all performant, and do some of these more specific things in your app that AI agents are better at doing. Now, as of this video, Lovable is actually due to release their AI agent feature in the next week or two, which I'm going to be doing a separate video on. So Lovable could potentially stay in the build your app category, but I'm going to move these over to prototype. So I built my prototype and it's working. Let's get these into the prototype section. And why that's important to kind of separate those is because that means if you're using these for prototypes, these are really good tools to like basically test ideas for new features, to see if they work, and to visualize flows and to prototype the experience, just to test with people, just to see if it actually makes sense. And so if these are prototype tools, where do you actually build your app? Well, the first place that I would start to move over to building my app, once I have my prototype and everything all hooked up, all up and running, is actually to move into Cursor and use Claude Code as my coding agent. So this is going to be your, let's put in here, this is your AI coding agent. So think about these two things work really, really well hand in hand. Claude Code runs in the terminal, which can be a bit scary to get started with, but essentially it's just an interface with text where you tell it what to do, and it will then run through those steps to do it for you in your code base, check with you whenever it's doing anything, and then give you a view of what it's done and how to actually go and test that and create and do all that in a live environment. Cursor is an AI coding tool, and the combo of Cursor and Claude Code works so well because you can use Cursor to kind of query your code with the Cursor agent, and you can use Claude Code as your coding agent to actually build your app. But that being said, these are completely optional, so this is only if you want to go that step further. You can actually just keep building your app in Lovable or Bolt, to be honest, if you want to. There are also a couple of tools here that are more like all-in-one tools, so I'm going to create a new section over here that has like all-in-one functionality, which really is Base 44, which was just acquired by Wix for a ridiculous sum of money, and also Emergent. And now these platforms allow you to do all of the functionality that we've got in this, almost this entire section here. So they have like all of this built into the platform. So it can be really tempting to go with one of these platforms if you want to just get everything set up in one place. Have your, I don't actually know if these include payments as well. They probably don't, so you probably still have to integrate Polar. So the benefit of these platforms is that they do include things like database, authentication. Replit is also another example of a more like all-in-one platform. And so if you do want to just have all of your functionality kind of in the box built into these platforms, then these might be the platforms that you want to check out. But I think either way, it's roughly about the same amount of complexity, and it can actually be quite nice to have all of these bits separated out into different tools so that you know exactly where to track your payments, where to check all your database stuff, all of that stuff, rather than having it in one place. At least that's the way that I like to do. So what are these two other tools here, Devin and Linear? Well, the bonus thing that I wanted to show you here is, what if you've got your working app, you've got all of this set up, and you've started to get paying customers, and this is actually starting to grow. Well, next you might want to consider going over to a slightly different setup, which is helping you to go from a working app to a growing startup. This contains all of the same steps with a couple of key differences in the build your app section, and also I've added a new block here which is basically to track features and bugs and collaborate with other developers. So if you're starting to scale up an app and actually bring on external developers, you can then collaborate on the code together. And so the tools that work well in that instance would be Linear to track your features and bugs and collaborate, and then Devin to build your app. And why Devin works well here, and I've done another video on this, is because it allows multiple, this is basically another coding agent tool, is that Devin allows you to have multiple coding sessions open at any given time. So if you have multiple developers, they can all be running different coding sessions at the same time in Devin, could be running multiple Devins themselves for different features. And Devin also connects directly with Linear, which means that you can and provides an incredible amount of documentation. So when you actually go from this step to this step over here, some things that become really important to get hold of is documentation, onboarding developers, and building multiple things at the same time. And the way to do that is by using tools like Devin and using tools like Linear to track all your bugs and your features. Now, obviously you can still use Claude Code here and Cursor, and you'll likely have a setup which involves a bunch of all of these different tools. But again, like Devin is one that you can potentially look at there to actually bring on once you start to go from your working app to a growing startup. And so that is an overview of how you can use all of these tools to go from idea to working app. If you have just started in Lovable or Bolt, then these are the things that you're going to want to bring on to actually start fleshing out all the functionality of your app, accepting payments, storing your app data, storing your code somewhere, and then deploying your app on a live environment. And so hopefully if you've just started building your apps in one of these tools, you now have a better view of how to actually structure this so that you can get something that's working and getting customers that's live on an actual website that people can start to sign up and use. So hopefully that helps. I know if you're building an app in Lovable or Bolt and you're not sure where to go next, this can kind of give you a guide as to how you can start accepting payments, how you can start getting customers, how you can allow people to sign up, and some of the tools you'll need to actually get it onto a live website. Now this is just the tools that I like to use, and there are other tools out there that do the same thing, so feel free to experiment and test different things and bring them into this process. But if you think about what part of that flow is that tool helping you with, but this overall tech stack will help you go from just an idea that's a prototype in Lovable or Bolt to a real app that people can actually use. And then for those that have a working app and you're starting to grow and get customers, I just covered a couple of tools there as well that can really help you start to track and document all of the work that you're doing in code and onboard new developers when you bring them onto your team. If you like this video, then don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel. And as usual, if you want all of my startup and app building frameworks, including the link to this fig jam in this video, you can get them by signing up to my newsletter over at buildgreatproducts.com. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
Build great products. Build great products.